Guys, today we're going to start a brand new project, and this project is all about one-point perspective. To show one-point perspective in our art, we are going to use a variety of geometric and organic shapes, and we are going to have one vanishing point on our horizon line at the beginning of this project, and that is our point where all of our shapes are going to go back into space or look like they're getting farther away from us. And you can kind of see an example of one I've already started. I'm going to show you how to do this first part, and then we'll get into adding color and patterns and how we're going to finish up our background. So the first thing that we always have to do is draw a border. So just line up your ruler with the edge of your paper. You don't have to measure it or anything because our border is just the same width as our ruler. And you're going to do this on all four sides. And I'm just going to go ahead and write my name in the top left corner, and I'm going to write my block number on the right corner. Okay, so the first thing that we have to do for this perspective drawing is to draw a horizon line. And you can put your horizon line anywhere you want to. I would keep it somewhere in the center. And I'm just going to use my ruler to help me draw a straight line across my paper. Now I'm going to draw one vanishing point. This is the point where all of our shapes that we're about to draw are going to go back into space towards. So for the requirements for this project, you have to have at least 6 smaller shapes in the middle of your design, and you need to have 6 bigger shapes on the outer part of your design. So as you can see here, I have 6 smaller ones in the middle, and then I have 6 larger ones on the outside. And you might notice I have a good variety of geometric shapes and organic shapes. So I decided to do both, but maybe you just want organic shapes, or maybe you just want geometric shapes for your work of art. That's totally up to you. I like showing a good variety in my artwork, so I decided to do a variety of both geometric and organic shapes, but maybe you want your element of art shape to unify this work of art, and maybe you want to have geometric shapes unifying this entire piece. So that's really up to you and whatever message you're trying to send with your artwork. I love showing variety, so I chose to do a variety of different shapes. To line up where I want my middle shapes to go, I need to draw some guidelines. And how we're going to do this is I'm just going to put my vanishing point on the number 3 on my ruler, and I'm going to draw a point at 0. So I'm looking at the numbers on my ruler. 3 is at my vanishing point. I'm going to put a little dash mark at 0 and a little dash mark at 6. So I'm starting to figure out where I'm going to position my smaller shapes so that I still have enough room for my larger shapes. So when I did this one, I found out that 6 inches was enough space to fit my 6 shapes. So that's why we are lining up the 3 at our vanishing point, putting a dash at 0 and 6 so that we have 6 inches in total across our horizon line. And I'm going to move my paper vertically, and I'm going to put my vanishing point at the number 2 instead, and I'm going to put a little dash at 0 and a little dash at 4. So basically what I'm doing is I'm creating a rectangle to show me where my smaller shapes are going to go. So I need to add a little bit more, so I'm going to put that dash mark that I put up here at 3 and do 1 at 0, 1 at 6. Same for my bottom dash mark that I did. This one was at 4 inches, but now I'm going to put it at the number 3 and 0 and 6 again. And I just did some corners here to kind of, you know, just give me a little guide. And you want to draw this really lightly. You don't want to draw too dark right now because we're going to be doing a lot of erasing for this drawing. So here is where my smaller shapes are going to go, and this outside section are where my bigger shapes are going to go. So I think I'll start with, I don't know, a circle. I'm going to put 3 shapes above my horizon line, and then I'm going to do 3 shapes under my horizon line. Okay, so I've just done a rough sketch of where I want each of my smaller shapes, and I decided to do them all different. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm going to start with one of my shapes, doesn't matter which one, and I'm gonna connect the corner to my vanishing point. So I'm gonna line up my ruler with the corner of this square here, and I'm going to position it where the vanishing point is. So I want my ruler on the corner of my shape lined up with my vanishing point, and I'm going to draw a very light line going down. Do not press too hard because we're going to erase these in a second, or some of these. We're not going to erase all of these lines, but some of these lines are going to be erased. And my ruler up again with the corner of my square and the vanishing point, and I drew a line, and I have one more corner over here to do. And there we go. We're not going to do this corner because technically this would be behind all of these corners, so we don't need to worry about that corner. Now we are going to line up our ruler with the edge, and we kind of need to mimic this angle over here somewhere. So decide how long you want your shape to be, and this is easy because this is just a vertical line, right? So I'm just going to draw another vertical line connecting this diagonal line with this one, and I want to do the same for right here. So this is just a horizontal line, so connecting from my vertical line over, I'm going to draw a horizontal line. So now we're going to start erasing, and these three extra short lines down here, we don't need those anymore because those were just guidelines showing us where the edges or the corners of our form was going to go. So now this square or this rectangle now is going back into space towards my vanishing point. Now for a rounded shape, it's a little different. I'm just going to position my ruler on the side of that shape, and I'm going to line it up with the vanishing point. So it kind of looks like that. So rounder shapes are a little bit more tricky because you don't have a definitive corner to go off of. You just have to use your best judgment on a round or an organic shape and decide where would be the best place to start your line and to stop your line. Now again, I need to mimic the bottom of my circle right here. Okay, so I'm gonna just mimic that curve, copying this curve down here. And now I can erase those extra lines that we don't need because we've just closed our form off with that curved line. And now I have a cylinder going back into space. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that for the rest of my small shapes, and I'll be right back to show you how to do the larger shapes. So I have my smaller shapes all laid out, and these are all going back towards this one vanishing point. So I turned those 2D shapes into three-dimensional forms, and I'm showing depth because as my shapes are going back into space, they are getting smaller, okay? So now I can erase these guidelines because that was just showing me where my small shapes are going to go. And now I can focus on my larger shapes. So maybe I want to do some organic forms. So let's see. Organic forms or organic shapes are more like free form kind of shapes that are more random. Maybe I could do, I'm trying to think of a nice composition, right? I don't want my big shapes to feel out of place with my smaller shapes. So maybe I'll do like a leaf down here because I really want to do like a leaf organic shape down here. That might be fun. So really think about your shapes as you're placing them. Think about the composition of your work. That's how your artwork is laid out. Think about the balance of your work. Do you want it to be symmetrical? Do you want it to be asymmetrical? What do you want to be the focal point? All of these things you should be thinking about as you are, coming up with your design. So let me go ahead and figure out how I want to do my larger shapes in the background, and then I'll be right back. So just like I like to show a lot of variety in my artwork, I also love balance, and I like it when my artwork is pretty symmetrical. So what I've done is I've just kind of done the same sort of shapes on opposite sides to kind of balance my artwork out a little. I am going to start with my ruler again, and I'm going to line up the edge of my organic shapes. So like I said with the circle over here, with curved shapes, it's a little bit trickier to figure out where to put your lines going towards the vanishing point. But I usually just line up my vanishing point with the edge of my organic shape, and I'll do the same up here. So I'm gonna find the edge of that organic shape, line it up with my ruler like so, and draw a very light line, because what's happening now is this organic form that I just made is actually behind these smaller shapes, okay? So we have to think about that whenever we draw our mimicking line, because what I need to do now is draw the same curvy line right here over here somewhere, depending on how big or how long I want this shape to be. So I'm gonna put it like right here, but once I get to this rectangular prism that I have right here, I'm just gonna jump over that rectangular prism, and I'm gonna continue my wavy line over here. Okay, if you want, you can just draw right on top of that, so you can kind of see and make sure that it's correct. So you want them to be almost the same as best as you can, and then you can go in and erase it right on top of our smaller forms that we have here. So now I have two overlapping forms. The smaller form is overlapping my larger organic form, okay? And I can erase this extra line here. That was the line that I drew from the edges of my organic shape. I don't need those anymore. And I'm gonna go ahead and do that for the rest of my larger shape. So just line it up with the edge of your shape as best as you can, all the way to the vanishing point. And I drew my line right on top of this cylindrical shape that I have here. So I'm just going to erase that. And as you're working, you might wanna redefine all of your shapes, because as we are erasing, some of them might start disappearing. Okay. So there's my leaf shape, and now I can erase all these extra lines. So I'm gonna go ahead and speed this up, and I'll be right back to show you the next step. After you finished drawing or sketching out all of your shapes, you should have 12 altogether, 6 small and 6 larger shapes. You could have used a variety of geometric or organic shapes, or you could have mixed them together, kind of like how I did. Now we're left with kind of a messy pencil drawing. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a pen, and we're just going to go over all of our lines again. And I definitely recommend using a ruler, especially for your straight lines, so that we can keep our artwork nice and neat. Okay, so you're just going to outline using a pen as neat as you possibly can. Okay, so I've already done that here for this one. And as you can see, I still have a lot of messy pencil marks. So after you finish outlining with pen, you're going to use an eraser and just erase any extra pencil lines that you might see. So now we have our 3D forms. We have our faces of our forms, or the flat front parts of all of our forms. And then we have the back of our shapes that are going back towards the vanishing point. So right now we're gonna focus on our shapes faces, that front part of our shapes. And we are going to start adding patterns in here. So that's the principle of design. And you can do any kind of pattern that you want to. Use a good variety of lines and shapes. However, you know, like I said when we were choosing our geometric and organic shapes, maybe you want all of your shape faces to have the same pattern. Maybe that's how you want to unify your artwork. That's totally up to you. You could focus on high contrast, low contrast. We are not adding patterns to the part of our shape that's going back into space, just the front face of our shape.